So we didn't set out with a certain problem. We were just like, we want to make video editing simple.
In 2022, the average person will spend up to 100 minutes every day watching video. Calling it a trend doesn't even begin to cut it. And while video content is in high demand, making it can be complicated. So how do you take something as layered and complex as video editing and make it simple enough so that anyone can do it?
My name is Jess and I am the product design lead for video at Canva. I think one of the biggest shortcomings of traditional video editing is the complexity. Lots of layering, keynotes, easing, because video editing isn't only about the visual elements on a canvas, it's also about the timing, the animation, the keyframes.
There's also audio levels, dimensions, export formats, assets, composition settings, channels. There's a lot.
I think the people that aren't being served is literally anyone that doesn't have any experience in video editing, any design knowledge. What we really wanted to do was to simplify all of that, to reduce that learning curve so anyone can really jump into a video editor and actually start creating a video without having any specialized skill. We started with, just listening, really listening to all the range of people. We did lots of qualitative interviews, lots of them. I can't even remember how many we did. When we were interviewing them, we essentially did the recording and then put them into Dovetail. And then we did all the tagging and we're able to create highlight reels and then also tag them to identify all the patterns and all the themes that came out of there. From listening to people, we were able to then identify what were their needs, where were their pain points, and how can we create a video editor from there. What were the biggest challenges that people were facing when creating a video in a traditional video editor? All of the layers that you find inside a traditional video editor. There are so many layers. You have a piece of text, you need to time that text individually. You have an image, you need to time that image individually. So we really wanted to think about how do we almost bucket those things all together so someone that can create a presentation can really translate that and create a video really simply.
Familiarity is a usability principle in design. Things that are familiar lower our cognitive load, which is like the processing power of our brain.
What we really wanted to do was think about how do we bring the simplicity of the presentations product into a video editor.
Canva's presentation product is really simple. So simple that millions of people work with it every day and they're familiar with it.
How do we, really build on top of something that people already know and people already love?
Apple is famous for basing its icons on real-world objects. This is an application of familiarity called skeuomorphism, and it helped a whole generation of people move from products with physical interfaces to products with digital ones. This kind of skeuomorphism is less common now as people become more used to the digital world, but familiarity is still important. It's the reason why we see the same designs everywhere. Things like drag and drop, hamburger menus, buttons that bounce when you press them. These designers aren't copying each other. They just understand how familiarity works.
Yeah, so we created a single line video editor. By bucketing all those things, we could really think of it on a scene to scene level as opposed to an element to element level. So when thinking about how to make something simple, I always like to think about this analogy about the balance bike.
Usually when a toddler is learning how to ride a bike, we give them training wheels.
And that actually doesn't benefit the child at all.
This is the balance bike. It removes training wheels and pedals. It's actually a better way to learn.
Because the key thing about learning how to ride a bike is learning how to balance.
Jess is talking about reductive design, and it's surprisingly hard for us to do. When we're solving problems, our natural tendency is to add features, but when it comes to simplicity in design,
you can really start to see how sometimes taking things away is actually more beneficial to the user at the end, as opposed to adding extra things. I think the biggest risk when it comes to creating a product is that you just become a feature factory. You have all of these features, but nothing feels like it's prioritized because you're just trying to give everything to the user all at once, and that's really overwhelming. And that really comes on this idea about uninformed simplicity.
Jess is referring to a Twitter post by Colin Dunn. The post shows a bell curve where the x-axis is your understanding of the problem and the y-axis is your design's complexity. At the beginning of the bell curve, you have a low understanding and your design has low complexity.
You haven't really thought too much about the problem space. The solution seems simpler than it actually is.
While your solution might feel simple, it doesn't capture the entirety of the problem. Then as you move along the bell curve, your understanding increases.
But in solving for that complex problem, you're meeting all the criteria, but all the complexities are also revealed in your solution. So you're left with a really complex product. And then you go down the bell curve, and this steep slope is where most people drop off.
For designers who really dig deep into the problem, there's the right-hand side of the bell curve, where understanding meets simplicity.
To really meet that aha moment, that moment of like, of course that's the way it is. You can't imagine it being any other solution because it's just so simple, but it really addresses all those complex problems. I think making something simple it's really about getting to the core of the problem. So, really getting rid of all the noise and really trying to think about what is the core pain point that I'm trying to solve for. It's hard. Bloody hard.